Hello and welcome to Noble Mind.
Noble Mind is a podcast exploring mindfulness, meditation, and psychology.
Hello, friends of Noble Mind, and welcome to our latest episode. In it, we talk to Kris Sutton about her work as a pain coach. We talk about her journey with chronic pain, recovering from pain by leveraging the effects of neuroplasticity, pain reprocessing therapy, and how important self-compassion can be when living with pain. Kris Sutton is a national board-certified health and wellness coach and a certified pain management coach. She's also a certified Alexander Technique teacher, a pain reprocessing therapy practitioner, and a certified mindfulness-based pain practitioner. Kris has experienced several forms of chronic pain in her own life starting as a young child, including migraines, fibromyalgia, spinal fusion, endometriosis, and thyroid cancer. She brings this deeply felt, hard-won experience to her work with clients. If you are a fan of Noble Mind, please follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or Twitter, or join our free Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/NobleMind. You can also listen to our episodes on our YouTube channel now and learn about upcoming events, get show notes, and join our email list at noblemindpodcast.com. Enjoy the show. We are here with Kris Sutton on today's episode of Noble Mind. Welcome to the show. Maybe you could start us off by telling us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, I'm a pain management coach who works with people with chronic pain to help them reduce their pain and improve their quality of life. And I came to this work because I've had chronic pain most of my life. So I was looking for a way to get out of pain. And I've actually had about 8 different types of chronic pain over the years. And I've tried just about every treatment modality under the sun. So before I got into pain management coaching, I've had a variety of different careers. The longest was as a motivational speaker. I worked in partnership with my ex-husband using sketch comedy and improvisation to help people to deal with change more effectively. So we were kind of like Saturday Night Live for business. So it was a lot of fun. But it was also pretty stressful being out on the road. And so that stress was not particularly helpful for the chronic migraines, tension headaches, and fibromyalgia that I was dealing with.
It's so nice to hear you share a little bit about your own experiences with pain, because I know, some of the folks who I've worked with pain, there's definitely this sense of like, if you haven't lived it, you don't get it kind of. And as a mental health professional, sometimes people come in and they're like, okay, like you're going to try to talk me out of my pain now,
Right.
or like people get referred to me when their doctor tells them it's quote in their head. And so like if the starting line is like already sort of tainted by the way that medical providers have treated them.
Yes.
So I'm sorry that you've had so much pain in your life, but I'm also glad that you've chosen to, make a profession and trying to help people, because I think it does make a difference being someone who has lived experience with it as well. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, I do find that it gives me more credibility for sure. A lot of my clients will say, "Oh, yeah, you get it. You absolutely get it." And I did get involved in working with pain a little bit earlier in my life. I actually got into the mind-body field in the 90s. I was teaching something called the Alexander Technique. And it was really helpful for me because I had chronic tension headaches since I was a kid. And those headaches escalated into migraines in my teens, as well as low back pain and neck pain. And studying that technique, it allowed me actually to return to performing, which is what I originally wanted to be doing. And then I was teaching Alexander Technique on the side. So I kept one foot in kind of the mind-body world And then I was able to continue performing. However, like I mentioned, the stress of being on the road and then those kind of being in those corporate event, it was like, oh, such high pressure. You gotta, you gotta perform. Oh, oh, they didn't laugh. Oh no, they were a tough crowd. Plus I had undiagnosed endometriosis on top of that. And I also had some unstable joints in my neck and my hips and my back. And then on top of that, I had fibromyalgia. So that was just a hot mess.
Boy, oh boy, yeah.
But, my sense of humor helped me deal with it. But then you fast forward to 2020, and I was having 4 migraines a week. Yeah. So it just was all stacking up. I had physical stuff, and then I had this kind of sensitized nervous system. And the pain in my neck, it got to the point where it felt so bad. I felt like I was being stabbed in the neck with hot pokers. And honestly, I got to the point where I was suicidal from the pain, because it was just like, I got to get out of this body. I didn't know what else to do. The meds stopped working. I had tried everything. And by that point, I had gone through a divorce, a career change, a couple of moves of housing. And when you look on a scale called the Social Readjustment Rating Scale, it measures stress and how stress can lead to stress-related illnesses. And if you score over 300, your chances of developing a stress-related disorder are about 80%. My score was in the 500s.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's not surprising, that I would have gotten to that point of being like, I don't want to be here anymore. And when I had this pain in my neck, I went to get an MRI and I was like, I got to get a spinal fusion or something, because I felt like this vertebra was moving, and it had moved backwards actually. And to add to that, when they did that MRI, they found that I had a nodule on my thyroid and that it was thyroid cancer.
Oh boy.
So basically at that point, it was like, okay, hold the presses. I got to step away from everything. Now it was a little bit easier to step away from everything because it was 2020.
Oh gosh, wow, timing.
I know. So it's like
convenient pandemic just for you.
I know, right? I had a very 2020. So at that point, I had a marketing business, and I just said, you know what? I gave my clients to a colleague of mine, and I just focused on my healing, because I had to have 2 surgeries at that point. One on one to take my thyroid out, and one to get the fusion. And my healing and my recovery became my focus. And, I was like, oh, this is taking longer than it should. Of course, we start shooting on ourselves. And then one night when I was in the midst of my recovery, I just thought to myself, I wonder if there's such a thing as a pain coach. And I started to think about it kind of from 2 sides of it. Like, one was, I need a pain coach. And the other was, maybe I could be a pain coach. Like, I've done everything. I could probably tell people, what all's out there. And so as I was Googling it, I found, yes, there is such a thing. And I found a place. It was then called Take Courage Coaching. It's now called Pain Coach Academy. And so I started working with a pain coach. And it was then that I learned about neuroplasticity. And that really changed a lot for me. I'm so glad I reached out, because then I trained to become a coach, and the rest is history.
That's great. I'd love to hear a little bit of how you think about neuroplasticity with pain.
Well, neuroplasticity, we have the ability to change how our brains process pain. Basically, with neuroplasticity, our brains learn pain, and our brains become sensitized to pain. And so with that sensitization, some of us, we can feel just the slightest little sensation, but to us, that sensation feels a lot bigger. Years ago, I had a friend who said, I said something about having a headache. And, I have had chronic tension headaches since I was a kid. They escalated into migraines. And she's like, it seems like, anytime the wind blows, you have a headache. And, you know, on the one hand, I'm like, shut up. And on the other hand, I'm like, you know what, she's right.
Mm.
But I didn't know about neuroplasticity at the time. I didn't know anything about how the nervous system worked with pain. But my brain did see everything as a threat.
Mm.
And that's one of the things. It's like your brain starts to see everything as a threat. When your brain is sensitized, when the wind blows,
Mm-hmm.
that's a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And the way our nervous systems work, it's not like everything comes up. It's like I feel a sensation, that sensation comes up to my brain, and my brain gets to decide, is this sensation that I'm feeling dangerous or not dangerous?
Mm-hmm.
Is this a threat or is this not a threat? And when our brains are sensitized, everything's a threat.
Mm-hmm.
And so our brain then turns on, bing, okay, well, then I'm going to turn that into pain. I'm going to say that this is pain. And our brain has memories too of past threats.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, oh, last time I did this, that was a threat. And so that brought up a headache, or that brought up this muscle pain. And so I remember that. And it's not conscious at all.
Right,
No.
It's
right.
all subconscious, and it's all trying to keep you safe.
Right, right. And it's happening like at the speed of light, kind of like way in the back
absolutely.
of your like animal brain, kind of.
Right. And so if our brain can learn pain, our brain can unlearn pain.
Mm.
It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
It takes time, but it's possible. And so that's what I've been doing for myself, and that's what I teach other people to do now. And it's amazing. And that, I mean, this is what the neuroscientists have figured out. But the traditional medical model is, you know, tissue damage equals pain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of that's the great thing about what is coming to the fore now, is that we're starting to learn, actually, no.
Mm-hmm.
The amount of tissue damage doesn't have anything to do with the amount of pain we have.
Meaning that regardless of the extent of the tissue damage that can be assessed, the person's subjective experience of pain could be all over the place. Is that right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, when I heard that, it really pissed me off.
Right.
I was like, shut up, you know, because I have endometriosis.
Right.
And, you know, I was like, oh, when they get in there, I'm going to have so much.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, you don't have very much. And I'm like, stop it.
Right. Yeah.
So
just
much
that
pain. There's got to be a ton. And I mean, when I was younger, I thought, oh man, one day somebody is going to like get inside of my body with surgery, and they're going to be like, how have you been walking around like this?
Yeah. Right. Well, in some ways that would offer the needed validation of all your suffering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's been over the past several years of like, oh, complex PTSD. Like that was a whole like ding, 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 I didn't know anything about that. And it suddenly started, it started to make sense, like, oh, your brain is sensitized. It's, and I mean, I did know, like, I'm a highly sensitive person. So there's that too. I am an artist.
So you're saying that people with certain life experiences or nervous systems may be more likely to experience the intense pain, or to experience the sensation or the tissue damage, or is more intense because of that sensitization from past trauma, or whatever their nervous system kind of baseline level of
absolutely
sensitivity is. Right?
It could be genetic, it could be trauma. But I mean, the one thing is, like, you can get two people next to each other, or two x-rays next to each other, and one person, they'll have, really severe bulging discs. And they have no pain. And you'll have another person next to them, and they'll have barely any bulging discs. Horrible pain. And Now, what a lot of medical professionals will do is they'll just poo-poo the person with the barely any bulging discs. My thought is instead, I want to know, how do you become that person who has hardly any pain? Like, what's going on with that person, and how do I get that nervous system? And so, like, what's happening with the pain reprocessing therapy folks? They've done with some studies. They call it the Boulder Back Study, and they've done studies with people with lower back pain. And with the work that they do, they've done work in fMRI, where they have people, they have lower back stuff, they validate it on the fMRI, and then they do work with them to basically lower that stress response, make them feel safer in their primitive brain. And in doing so, the pain levels go down. A large percentage of them are pain-free. So there's a lot we can do with our nervous system and our brain.
Would it be accurate to say that the threshold for pain is reduced for some of us in certain situations, so that a sensation or a physical event that ends up being experienced with a great deal of pain, and through brain processing therapy, that threshold can be reset? Is that?
Yeah. A big part of it, so there's a couple pieces to it. So like with mindfulness, you're training yourself to, instead of saying, oh God, this is pain, you're saying, okay, this is a sensation. So there you're decoupling it. You're not even just, you're changing, you're not even identifying it as pain. You're identifying it as a sensation. And then by just saying like, okay, this is a sensation that can come and go. The sensation isn't here forever. So now you're lowering the volume of it. And now you're seeing the transitory nature of it. And then if you can begin to say, this is a safe sensation. This sensation, can't hurt me. Now, a caveat on this, making sure that you've gotten yourself checked out by a doctor. That whatever this is that you're working with,
right. I was
this
thinking,
is not for, this is not for cancer.
I was thinking about some experiences where it's very hard to be certain that that's so, and then it becomes very difficult, right? It's very hard to be certain with some sensations that it isn't potentially harmful or...
Right.
Yeah.
So having that peace of mind, getting yourself checked out by a medical professional, this is for when they've said, you're going to have to learn to live with the pain, and that's said so often. I mean, 20% of people are living with chronic pain. And 5 to 10% of people are living with debilitating chronic pain. And so, that's one piece. But that's not the only piece I work on with people. It's also about helping people get just their quality of life back too. It's, 'cause I know everybody's like, I want to have no pain. But you can't guarantee that, someone's pain is going to go away. Someone's pain may or may not go away, and really we're looking for a reduction of pain. And of course there is the paradox, as you guys know, as mindfulness practitioners, the more we cling, the more it's going to probably stick around. Like, I want my pain to go away, so I'm going to hang on to it so it goes away. Being attached to it going away will probably make it stay. Kind of like the leaves on a stream meditation, just watching the sensations come and go is more of what we want to do. So like in pain reprocessing therapy, there is we do something called somatic tracking. And it really is, if you're noticing some sensations coming up, of just being like, okay, I'm just like riding in a car, watching the sensations go by, but I'm not being afraid of them. I'm not attaching to them. I'm just noticing them. And it's not for when you're having, level 8 pain.
Yeah, I think right. That's because I think it's very easy to like want the intervention that's going to help at every level all the time. But
Yeah.
it sounds like there's different tools for different situations, and you need to kind of choose among them or have a full toolbox for all the different situations. When it's an 8, it's something different.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. And you want to be retraining your brain when you're like at a 4, So, but with pain coaching, you want to have like a million different tools. So, there's these tools to help retrain the nervous system, but then there's also, how can you just have a fuller life too? You start to cut yourself off from your friends, that you become, there's a high level of isolation.
Life becomes smaller.
Yes, exactly. Life becomes smaller.
And pain is like asking for your attention, right? It's like, I need to deal with this. And until the pain goes away, that becomes all you focus on.
Exactly. And so it's like you tend to pull back because you're hurting and you're like, oh, maybe I'm not going to go on that hike. Or like, my head's hurting. I'm not going to go to that party. Or it's the end of the week, or it's the end of the day. My back hurts. I'm just going to lay down. And then maybe before you know it, you've cut yourself off from your friends, and then your family doesn't understand because they're like, oh God, they won't shut up about this. They're just complaining. And so before you know it, you've like annoyed everybody. And then you're canceling your plans and they're like, oh, well, I don't. And then people stop making plans with you, right? Because you keep canceling your plans. So that's one of the pieces too, is just having somebody to talk to. I put together like small groups so that people have that common humanity, because self-compassion is a huge piece. And that's how Alex and I know each other, is through our self-compassion group.
That's right, through mindfulness, self-compassion.
I'd love to hear either of you say a little bit more about how self-compassion and pain sort of intersect, or how self-compassion is supportive.
Yeah. How's it been helpful for you, Alex?
It's a very important piece, although I don't think it resolves it by itself, but it's a very helpful. Well, decreasing the stress level, it seems like that's a very big piece of it.
The self-compassion helps to decrease the overall stress.
And reducing self-blame.
Yeah.
Being able to take oneself out of stress when sort of caught up in a loop.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, Alex. I when I first heard of mindful self-compassion, I was listening to Brene Brown's podcast, and it was during the pandemic, and she mentioned self-compassion, and I was like, what? I grew up in a very perfectionistic environment, and so the idea of self-compassion was opposite of anything I was used to. But it was exactly what I needed. I'd been recovering from these surgeries, and, it was just taking so much longer to recover. And so I was being really hard on myself. I was like, I got to get back to work. And I couldn't, I just couldn't. And I had these really high expectations on myself. And so, just the idea of it was just revolutionary. And I'm convinced that most people with chronic pain really need it, because I think a lot of people with chronic pain are hard on themselves, because if they're not perfectionistic, I think there's a level of grieving the loss of the person you used to be, or the abilities you used to have. I see it again and again with my clients. Like, I used to be able to do this, and now I can't, and now I only can do this. And it's like self-compassion, just the balm, and then, there is that isolation. And so having that common humanity of like, being able to connect with other people, so that you're not by yourself.
So then how do you work with clients? Can you offer us an overview?
Yeah, absolutely. So pain coaching it's a type of coaching that helps clients to reduce their pain and improve the quality of life. So they really go hand in hand. And some people, you really kind of start with the improving the quality of life.
Hmm.
Everybody's like, I want my pain gone. It's like, no, we got to start with improving the quality of life, because,
With your pain.
in improving the quality of life, it actually tells your brain you're safe. And it's kind of backwards. Like our primitive brain says, I just want to hide out in my hidey hole and feel safe. I don't want to move. I don't want to move my body because I want to heal. But after about 3-4 months, your tissues are going to do that's all the healing they're going to do. And beyond that, I mean, that's the difference between acute pain and chronic pain. Acute pain is like 3 months. And beyond that is chronic. And then pain starts to take over other parts of your brain, which is why, some of us with chronic pain maybe can't think so straight. Like I was getting to the point where I was like, I can't think straight. Why? I don't have executive function. Like, what's going on with me? And I mean, I just remember saying to my family, like, I don't know what's going on. I can't think. And part of it was I had my thyroid out. So my thyroid levels were really
that
messed
controls
up.
so much. Yeah.
Oh, God, it was bad. So with pain coaching, I'm teaching, I have my mind back now. Those of us who are paying clients or pain coaches, we're teaching clients tools and strategies so that they can become more empowered in aspects of managing their own pain. And it's not just looking outside of yourself. Like, okay, I'm going to go to my massage therapist, and I'm going to go to my acupuncturist, and I'm going to take these 12,000 meds. I mean, you may be going to those people to help. I mean, it's not, I do have people I go to who help me, but you're taking back control. You are the one who is in charge of your pain management. And so with that, you have a sense of control, and thus you're improving your resilience. So some of the tools that we use, having a vision for your life. So often when you're just like, forget it, I'm just in chronic pain and I give up. Having a vision for your life despite pain, like maybe I will be in chronic pain the rest of my life, but you know what? I'm going to have a vision. I'm going to have a purpose for my life. I'm not going to give up. I'm going to do something with my life, and I'm going to have some goals. Now, I will tell you, if someone had used the word goal with me when I was in like the bottom of the hole, I would have been like, no way.
Right.
So I don't always use the word goal. I
What do you
might be
call
like,
them?
what do you want to do in this next week?
Ah.
Might want to walk out to the mailbox and back. Maybe that's all you can muster. And you know what? That's great. I use motivational interviewing. So that really helps people to, find that intrinsic motivation to reach these goals. We use, pain neuroscience education, like I mentioned, like we were talking about. We use mindfulness. That's a big piece. Draw from cognitive behavioral therapy. So we're looking at, what are your thoughts? What are your behaviors, and how, what are your emotions? Because obviously emotions are a big piece of it, and it does influence our experience of pain. We're looking at stages of change. So because we're changing behaviors. And so, teaching people about the stages of change when they're ready. I mean, every client is different. And so we're going to have a different lesson each week. Helping people to build up their social support, because again, so many people have become isolated. And so what does that look like to build up that social support? And then we're having elements of health and wellness coaching. So we're looking at things like diet and exercise. So having that nourishing food. Yeah. So those are the elements.
That sounds really comprehensive. It was making me also feel like there's so many things to try to, like, so many plates to try to get spinning at once, kind of, like building quality of life, but then like grieving the life you had, and then like trauma, and like there's so many things that are like in the room with you as you're trying to work with this issue of pain. It just sort of like there's so much under the hood, It's hard to know which step to take first. Yeah.
I'm really, I am tailoring it to where my clients are, depending on where they are. So, and some people it's going to be individual, and some people they're going to come to a group, and other people they're going to take a class. So it kind of really just depends on where people are and what they need.
I was thinking about going in the direction of, things that are misunderstood about pain, or ideas that get misapplied about, doing pain coaching, or like that kind of outcomes people might be looking for, any kind of misunderstandings.
I think that the biggest like misconceptions that people have, again, is that, tissue damage equals the amount of pain.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, and trying to get people to understand that this can make a difference in your pain, that people do get caught up in that, medical model of, like, wait, no, but my back hurts. So why are we talking about this?
Right.
And it's like, because you have a nervous system
that connects your back to your brain. And
yeah. I remember years ago, talking to some guy, like this is when I was just teaching the Alexander technique work, and I didn't actually know about, the pain neuroscience education, because it actually wasn't out, because this stuff really is just in the past 10 years that they've really kind of figured this stuff out. But talking to a guy about the mind-body connection, and it was a guy I knew through like something totally different, and he was like, there's no mind-body connection. And it's like, it must be so weird to walk around without a nervous system. How do you do it, dude? But I mean, it is like, people are like, yeah, but though I'm different. And yes, you do have an injury, and your injury is hooked up to a nervous system that's hooked up to a brain. And so it's just about turning down the volume. Mm-hmm. So if you think about, a soundboard, right? And how there are all the different levers on the soundboard, and then there's the master volume. We're going in and we're just turning down that master volume. And that's what things like the meditation do. And going in and then, doing things like, okay, and you're safe. You're safe. The sensation is safe, and you are safe, and this moment is safe. And we tend to go back and be like, yeah, but in the past it wasn't. It's like, yeah, and in the past it might not have been, but right now in this moment, this sensation right now, what is this sensation like right in this moment? And it might hurt like hell, and it's like, it's okay. You can be pissed off about it. And feel how pissed off you are about it. And you can even do things like expressive writing. You can draw, you can paint, get out the emotions behind it. Because, there's the phrase, what wires together fires together. And so if those emotions are wiring and firing along with, and they've coupled up, then you're going to have that fiery emotion.
There's so fused, that experience of pain and then the resistance to the pain, or the anger about the pain, that it's like it's almost the same phenomena experientially, I think.
And then it's like, oh, and I shouldn't feel this way.
Yeah, then the layer of like, and I'm causing my own problems and making it worse, and now self-blame.
And nobody believes me, and the medical and the doctors are telling me I shouldn't feel this way, or it's not real, and and I mean, and there's a lot of great doctors out there. I mean, and there's a lot of doctors who are getting it and who are referring out.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people who are starting to get it, and we're working on getting the word out, but it's just taking time. And so the more and more people who are kind of dealing with chronic pain and can learn about this, the better off we all are.
Yeah, really. And also I'm thinking too, family and friends of people who have issues with pain, to help them understand what's really happening in a way that like fosters compassion, and not just like, see, it's in your head, get over it, or something,
Exactly. Yeah. Because there is the misconception of like, oh, she's creating her pain. And it's like, no. No, nobody is consciously doing this. Your pain is 100% real. Everything you're feeling is 100% real. You're feeling it, it's real.
Right. It's also interesting that, of course, calling it chronic pain is very descriptive and great for treatment purposes and so on. But it also seems like it's a very prominent aspect of this larger sort of multifaceted phenomenon, because there's stress there is empowerment, motivation, agency. So it's almost reductionistic to think of it only as, I have a pain problem. So it's a much larger. It seems like much more complex and richer than it's taking Advil.
What it is you have a sensitized brain. You have a sensitized nervous system.
Right.
Yeah.
And it would be great if that's kind of what they referred to it as, is you have sensitized nervous system syndrome. Like that would be, and here's the treatment.
Right.
Oh, I
right.
see.
Yeah.
And the treatment is biopsychosocial. And so it's very complex. It's not an easy treatment.
Yeah.
And yet it is kind of, I think of it as mind, body, life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's your mind, it's your body, and it's looking at your whole life.
Yeah.
But a really important piece is creating that feeling of safety for your primitive brain.
Mm-hmm. That just seems like a good idea in general, doesn't it?
I mean, yeah, I think for everybody, right?
I mean, that's what, if you can learn that through an experience of pain, you're really ahead of the game on the other side, because a lot of people without pain never learn that.
That's so true, isn't it? It's so true.
It's hard. I mean, it's hard to, when you're going through pain, you just want to get through it and survive. But I've seen some people really come out of it with that, having really grown a lot through it.
Well, and isn't it interesting when we say pain, it's like, wait, do you mean physical pain or emotional pain?
Right. Yeah.
And it's like, yes.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Both. And
it has both, because you can't have physical pain and not be affected by it emotionally. It's wearing. It's absolutely wearing. And I would say another thing is when you have physical pain, if you have really severe chronic physical pain, seeing a therapist is very helpful as well. Seeing somebody who's trained as a somatic therapist, who does trauma work, I think is a really important thing to do, in conjunction with coaching. That's something that I definitely did and continue to do. Everybody's looking for the shiny, the golden bullet, or what is it, silver bullet, and it doesn't exist, unfortunately. And I think there's different things for everybody.
Yeah.
So, of course, I am a fan of coaching because that's what I do. But again, even within coaching, there's 12,000 pieces.
Totally. Yeah. And right. I mean, I think as a therapist who works a fair amount with people with pain, I feel like from what I've heard reported to me that people have also experienced a fair amount of people who are like, they're the professional who's going to heal their pain, kind of, right? So like, it's almost like the agenda of whether it's a therapist, a coach, a doctor, whoever, that their agenda gets in the way.
Right.
So sometimes it's like nice to have just like a supportive therapist or someone more humanistic who can just like really be in the pain with them and not be the one who's trying to like teach them the skills to fix it or something, and having multiple people on your team and having someone who can not be like trying to make it go away.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah. Just to support where you are. Yeah. I have at various points in my life had moments when I'm like, well, maybe I need to do something with pain to, help other people. And it's like, no, I want to do this other stuff. And I'm like, sometimes the universe just keeps smacking you upside the head. So here I am.
Well, thank you for all the work that you do. It's really meaningful.
Well, thank you.
Thank you for sharing your expertise with us. And how can folks learn more about you and your work?
Oh, yeah. Well, I have a website. It is yourpainmd.com. Guide. It's yourpainguide.com. And I've also put together a free ebook. It's called the Top 5 Tips to Reduce Your Pain That Don't Cost a Dime. And I've got a page just for your listeners. It's yourpainguide.com/noble.
Cool.
Yeah.
We will share that in our show notes along with other goodies and resources discussed and anything else you want to give to us to send along to our listeners. Thanks so much, Kris, today. It's been great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening today.
If you enjoyed this episode, we hope you'll hit subscribe, leave us a great rating or review, and spread the word. You can also go to noblemindpodcast.com to join our email list. You'll get a weekly behind-the-scenes message, news, announcements, and other special goodies we come up with just for you. Thanks for listening, and bye for now.